start again meeting people and especially at this kind of events that you are meeting a lot of people and seeing a lot of old friends. So thank you. I really appreciate that. Okay. So after this long title of the conference, what I want to do is to explain what NetApp is doing to provide a solution to, give data protection to Kubernetes applications, no? And why NetApp? Because we are we have been, providing data and persistent data for the last 6 years, no, in the Kubernetes world since 2016. With our Trident CSI provisioner. Before it was not CSI, before CSI or the Container Storage Interface API existed. So what I really want to tell you is what is Astra and what Astra can do to help you and to make your Kubernetes applications be safer and that you can do things like disaster recovery and this kind of things, okay? So a very brief marketing introduction in the sense of saying, okay, everybody is starting to use Kubernetes out there, and most workloads are stateful, no? That means that they are using some persistent storage just to make sure if the container dies, everything keeps running, no? So because the data is there, okay? So the dynamic provisioning that was born in 2016 with Kubernetes version 1.4 when the words storage class appear in the horizon. So it helped to provide automatic provisioning of volumes to Kubernetes applications. So this is more or less has been used for 6 years and is clear, is solved, no problem. So everybody out there, all storage vendors, they have a storage provisioner. After some years, the Kubernetes community provided this container storage interface just to make sure that everybody out there was following the same API to create volumes, destroy volumes, connect volumes, mount the volumes in the pods, in the containers. So this is completely solved, no? And NetApp has been there for these 6 years, providing through Trident, through our provisioner, this solution, no? So no problem to provide persistent storage to Kubernetes application. But what happens if the data inside this persistent volumes is lost, is corrupted, somebody accidentally deleted, okay, these kind of things. So they could happen and you need to solve them, no? Because sometimes the data that is used by the applications is much more important than the Kubernetes cluster. So it's easy to deploy a Kubernetes cluster. You just spin up one Kubernetes cluster in the public cloud in 15 minutes or less. So this is not a problem, but if you are using, applications that use data and this data goes away, you really have a huge problem, no? And also, the other need that is important is this capability to move applications, Kubernetes applications, from one Kubernetes cluster to another Kubernetes cluster, no? So we're starting to need these kind of things more and more, maybe sometimes as part of a CI/CD pipeline or these kind of things, but in general, it's very interesting to have the capability to take the Kubernetes application that is running in production and move it to a pre-production, a testing environment, and just run the latest piece of code in using the data that has been used in production, okay? So this is more and more interesting. And what we really need is some kind of application-aware data protection solutions, no? That they treat Kubernetes application as an entire unit, no? As a whole, no? So just to make sure that you can protect everything, not only the data that is inside the persistent volume, that is very important and is very valuable, but also all the Kubernetes objects, all the metadata, and here you have all these words that we have been hearing for the last years, no? Stateful set, deployment, secrets, config maps, all these things need to be protected as well as the data that is inside the persistent volumes if we want to provide a real data protection solution, okay? So NetApp Astra Control is the solution to that from NetApp we try to provide a solution for this, no? Just to make sure that when you are protecting an application in Kubernetes, we are taking care of all the objects, all the metadata that is part of this application, not only the data that is inside the persistent volumes that we can easily make a snapshot, a CSI snapshot, or make a clone, okay? So with Astra, we provide automation, we provide protection, we provide mobility, we provide governance. And no matter what is your workload in Kubernetes, no matter which is the Kubernetes distribution that you are using, if you are in the public cloud, if you are on-prem, or if you are in the data center, and no matter the backend storage or the persistent storage that you are using, no? It can be in the public cloud, and in the public cloud you are using maybe Azure Disk or Google Persistent Disk. So we want to provide a data protection solution to protect everything there, okay? So Astra Control Service is part of this suite of Astra Control that is, the special thing about Astra Control Service is that it's a managed service, no? So NetApp provides this service as a fully managed service operated by NetApp, and you just have to consume, no? In the same way, when you are looking for a Kubernetes cluster in the public cloud, and you start one AKS or EKS cluster in AWS, or an AKS cluster in Azure, or a GKE cluster in Google, in the same way you are consuming Kubernetes clusters to run your applications, Astra Control Service provides data protection as a service. So you just register, and then you can start protecting your applications in the public cloud as a managed service. You don't have to install anything in your Kubernetes cluster, so in this sense it's a complete agentless solution. And with that, you just can provide the right credentials to connect to your Kubernetes clusters, and we will start discovering the applications that are running in your Kubernetes cluster, and we will offer data protection to them. Once we have registered your applications, you can do a snapshot, you can do a clone from a snapshot, you can do a backup, you can do a restore, you can provide disaster recovery in general to your applications. Okay? So this is more or less the solution. And I'm going to go straight to the demo, and hope you like it. I'm going to risk a live demo, okay? So let's see how it works. And if you have any questions, you can, interrupt me and ask any question and make this interactive. So let me see if you can see this well, okay? I have, following with the multi-cloud story that we were hearing in the previous session, I have one Kubernetes cluster in Microsoft Azure that is called CNDM Day, okay, Cloud Native Data Management Day, main, okay, this is like our main Kubernetes cluster running in Azure, sorry. And we have another cluster created that is called CNDM Day DR, okay, to try to simulate our disaster recovery Kubernetes cluster, no? And this is running in GKE, in Google Cloud. When you use NetApp Astra for the first time, you just have to register in the service, okay? And we provide you with an account, and you can all of you can test this thing because it's completely available for testing. So you can register, and you can start playing with the solution, and you have the full feature of the product completely available for you, just limited to 10 managed namespaces, okay? So you can only protect up to 10 namespaces in all your clusters, okay? But you can play by yourself. No? So you register, you can see this dashboard initially, and the most important thing here is in the account, you have to provide the credentials to connect to your projects inside the public cloud. So I have provided, a credential for Microsoft Azure, another credential for Google Platform. These are the service principal. Just the service account just used to connect to your project in the public cloud, so Astra is able to explore which Kubernetes clusters are running inside your project in the public cloud. Okay. Then, when you provide these things, you can start managing Kubernetes clusters. No? And as you can see here, I have I'm already managing this main cluster, okay, that is running in Azure. You can see the version that is running, the 121, and the location of our Kubernetes cluster. No? And I have here this button with actions, so I can stop managing the Kubernetes cluster. Okay. And the other thing we have here is applications, okay, and buckets. Okay. The buckets are, the storage destination for our backups. So we provide snapshots. The snapshots are CSI snapshots, so they are going to be in the same cluster where the application is running. So if you lose completely the Kubernetes cluster, then you have a problem because the snapshot is also gone. No? The persistent volumes and the snapshot they are gone. So you somehow have to make sure and need to protect and need to save outside your Kubernetes cluster all the data and all the metadata. Okay. So the buckets here are for that. We provide object storage to store, all the backups outside the Kubernetes clusters. Okay, and as you can see, I can add more buckets here. So the only thing you have to do is to provide the public cloud where your object storage is, the bucket name and the credentials. Okay, and that's all. Sorry, because I'm zooming in a lot, just to make sure that everybody can see the screen, from the back of the room. Okay. So normally this has this size. So let me come back to a reasonable size to everybody can see. And the last thing is the application. So as you can see, I have two applications running in my AKS cluster. One is MySQL and the other one is PostgreSQL. This could be the normal screen size for this application to run. Again, let me make sure you all can see this thing. Okay, so and these are the Discover applications running in the cluster, but I have another tab here that you can see Manage. So I'm still not managing any of these applications that are already running in the Kubernetes cluster. So if I want to provide data protection for them, I just have to come back to applications, to the Discover thing, and just click in the action button, Manage. Okay, it's as simple as that. Okay, and as you can see now, this entire namespace, MySQL namespace, is managed, and we can start protecting it. Okay, I'm going to manage as well the PostgreSQL namespace. Okay, and now I can switch to the Manage tab, and you can see that there is a warning sign saying, "Oh, this is not protected. You need to protect these things. Okay, they are important." Blah blah blah. So I can. The first thing I want to show you is what for Astra is a Kubernetes application. No? And you can see here the list of resources that we are protecting. So it's obviously the PVC and what is inside the PVC, the persistent volume claim, but also the config map, the deployment, the replica set, the secrets, even the service account of the namespace. Okay, so you can see all these things are going to be snapshotted, all these things are going to be backup. Just to start protecting, you can see where this thing is running as well in the node. What I can do is to do a snapshot, create on-demand snapshots, so I can do one snapshot wherever I want. So I'm going to create one snapshot. Okay, let me reduce the zoom. Okay, as you can see, the only thing that I have to provide is a name for the snapshot. He's putting a timestamp there, so the timestamp is fine with me. So I'm going to click next, summary of what I'm going to do. Okay, click a snapshot, and that's all, okay? So we are creating a CSI snapshot, but it's not only containing the PVC, it's a snapshot of the config map, the deployment, all the configuration, all the metadata of the application as it is today, okay? As it is now, okay? Then I can also create configuration protection policies. This is a kind of a schedule. Let me see if you can see this better, okay? Where you can see, I can say, okay, I want to protect this application, and I want to make sure that every hour I have a snapshot, and I want to keep the latest 8 snapshots or hourly snapshots, okay? And I want to apply for a daily data protection policy, and I want to do the backup at 3 a.m. UTC time, SLU, and I want to keep the latest 7 snapshots, and I want to keep the latest 7 backups, okay? So this is like the frequency and the retention, and you can establish all this. You can change the bucket for the daily backups, put a new bucket for weekly backups, okay? So here you have your policy. For example, I want to do the weekly backup on Sundays, okay? And once you are good with the policy, you just click next. There is a summary of the policy, and Astra will take care and will start protecting with snapshots and with external backups the Kubernetes application. So as you can see, it's quite easy to use. You can also do backups on demand, okay? So there is the snapshot tab and the backup tab. So we can just create a backup. I can do the backup from the existing snapshot. If you don't choose this, he's going to create a new CSI snapshot, and he's going to use the snapshot to mount it, read the contents on the PVC, and back them up in the object storage in the bucket. Okay. I'm going to use the snapshot that we just created. Okay. And that's all, okay? Giving a name, selecting the snapshot or not selecting the snapshot, do a backup now, and he will do the backup, okay? So it's just like that. I will have a progress bar to see the progress of my backup. In the meantime, I would like to show you how to add a new cluster. So I'm only managing my main cluster. Now I want to provide disaster recovery to my environment. I want to add the disaster recovery cluster, and instead of using Azure to be in a different region, for example, that I can do that, I'm going to try to do a cross public cloud or cross Hyperscaler disaster recovery. So I'm going to add the GKE cluster that I just showed you. Okay, let's click next. As you can see here, he's scanning inside with the credentials of my account. He's scanning inside the project of my Google Cloud Platform account, and he's discovering a GKE cluster, okay? So he's offering me to protect it. As you can see, this GKE cluster is in the Europe Southwest region, okay? And you can see a warning sign here saying, is eligible? Yes, it's eligible, because this is a warning, it's not an error. This is only saying, okay, we would like for you to use always NetApp storage in the public cloud. So as you know, we have cloud volume services in Google Platform. We have Azure NetApp Files in Azure. We have FSx for NetApp ONTAP in AWS. So we have our offering of storage in the 3 public clouds, no? And ideally, we would like you to use our storage, but even if you are using the native storage, we can protect the Kubernetes cluster. So I'm going to click next. He's going to scan now the Kubernetes cluster. He's going to see which are the storage classes that are already there, okay? If the NetApp storage would be available for this cluster, he will automatically install Trident and configure Trident to make sure that you can use NetApp storage as a persistent storage in this Kubernetes cluster. It's not the case. I don't have NetApp storage connected to this cluster. I'm going to choose the default storage class that I want to make sure is always used, because I need a container storage interface, a CSI compatible storage class to do the snapshots. Okay, so this is the reason of choosing, and that's all. Okay, so it's next, and I'm going to add a GK cluster to my Astra Control service. As you can see, this is a slightly different Kubernetes version, okay, and one is running in France Central, the other one is running in southwest of Europe, and one is a different public cloud provider or Hyperscaler. Okay. I'm going also to launch a snapshot of the PostgreSQL. One of the cool things of Astra Control Service that is all the time trying to discover new applications inside the Kubernetes clusters that you are managing. Okay, so if I deploy now, for example, a MongoDB database using, for example, this Helm chart. I'm sure that you cannot read what I'm showing you, okay? But let's try to see it here. As you can see, this is in the behind the scenes. This is our cluster, okay? I'm going to deploy a MongoDB database and Astra Control Service. When the deployment of MongoDB finishes, it will be able to discover, and I will be able to manage this new MongoDB application. Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do now, because I have two clusters, and for example, the MySQL application is already protected with a backup and a snapshot, I'm going to simulate a disaster recovery. No? So I'm going to clone or restore my MySQL database from the AKS Kubernetes cluster to the GK Kubernetes cluster. So I just have to click in the action button, click restore, okay? And in the restore details, you can see that I can choose between the current cluster, so I could clone my application to a different namespace in the source cluster, in the current cluster, or I can choose my disaster recovery cluster that is in Google, it's in GKE. Okay? I'm going to do that. I'm going to put the name of the namespace I want to create to recover my MySQL application. I'm going to choose the MySQL name. Okay? And I just need to select from which snapshot or from which backup I want to restore my MySQL application. So because I just finished doing this backup, I'm going to choose the latest one, the only one that I have available here. Click next, summary of what he's going to do. I'm going to restore all these things, not only the data, all the deployment, the config map, the secrets, okay, just to make sure that everything is going to work, okay. I'm going to click restore, and in the meantime, I wanted to also to show to you the what more things we can do with Astra Control Service. For example, we have execution hooks. So Astra Control Service is capable of detecting what is running inside the pod, and he has a list of applications that we are able to detect automatically. So he has automatically detected inside this namespace a PostgreSQL is running, and he has automatically applied pre-snapshot and post-snapshot scripts just to make sure that when we take a snapshot and use this snapshot to do backup, is completely consistent. Okay, so that is the idea. You can also add new hooks to specify the actions you want to take in the pre-snapshot and post-snapshot activities. Okay. So let's see what is happening behind the scenes. Okay, so I'm going to. This is our main cluster, as you can see, I have, if this connects, three namespaces, the MongoDB that was just created, the MySQL and the PostgreSQL. I'm going to connect to my DR cluster, so let me use the screen below, and I'm going to finish with this. I'm going to use now the GKE context for my kubectl. So let's see what is happening in my disaster recovery cluster. As you can see, a new namespace called MySQL was created 100 seconds ago. So let's see if I'm able to see what is happening in the SQL namespace. As you can see, he has already provided the persistent volume claim, and my pod is running. Okay, so the disaster recovery is completed. No? And as you can see, especially the simplicity of using this tool. So my cat can do disaster recovery of Kubernetes with this thing. Okay, so and that's all from my side. I don't know if you have any question. As you can see, the MongoDB that we deployed earlier now appears here in the discovery things, and we can start managing and protecting the MongoDB database. Okay, and that's all from my side. Any question? Anybody? Yes?
When you take a snapshot on the main cluster, is that the snapshot class provided by NetApp or?
No, the snapshot class is provided by the vendor of the storage class that has is providing the persistent volume claim. In this case, we are using the premium read-write-once storage class from Azure Disk, and the snapshot class is the one provided for Azure Disk, the CSI snapshot class of Azure Disk. In fact, you can see it here if you change again the context. This is the cloud native data management main. So now we can see get volume snapshot class is this, no? If I remember well. You can see the Azure Disk, the Azure file. These are the ones. And I can see the snapshot that Astra is created because they are CSI snapshots. No? So I can get the volume snapshot contents. I believe this is namespaced. So you can see here the snapshots. Okay, so everything is CSI compliance. I don't know if that was your question or.
No, I was just wondering who owns the snapshot basically.
So if it's NetApp storage, we are providing all the CSI driver with Trident, and Trident has its own CSI volume snapshot class and everything. Okay.
And all the backups are incremental or? Are
Sorry?
All the backups, are they incremental or full?
They are full. Right now they are full. Okay. So thank you very much. Any other question?
All right, good. So big applause here for a great presentation and a demo. We always love demos. Next up is the most exciting part of this